The headlines: Solomon Islands' economy has gradually recovered following the COVID-19 pandemic. Women in central Guadalcanal celebrate World Food Day. And SEMA calls for ministerial powers over state-owned enterprises not to be allocated to one minister. Hello, you're watching SIBC's TV News Bulletin. I'm Andrea Maahanwa. The Solomon Islands' economy has gradually recovered following the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic sent shockwaves through the world economy and triggered the largest global economic crisis in more than a century. Yan Kaukui reports.
The Solomon Islands economy has gradually recovered following the COVID-19 pandemic. This was highlighted in the World Bank Pacific Economic Update for the month of October. Senior economist at the World Bank, Ludwig Smits, explains the national economy has now surpassed its pre-pandemic levels.
The economy for Solomon Islands has shrunk during the pandemic because we had to shut the borders, there was less consumption, the economy was shrinking. But since the borders reopened, and actually since a resilient informal sector, we show that now the economy has grown bigger. The economy has surpassed pre-pandemic levels. So there is a recovery, so the economy has recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic. And for Solomon Islands in specific, it was not only the COVID-19 pandemic, it was also the 2021 riots and the price increases due to the war in Ukraine.
The report shows that Solomon Islands' economy has grown by 2.5% this year, a decline from 3% growth in 2023. Despite the progress made, the World Bank reveals that the rate of economic growth is settling into a slower pace across the region. This slowdown in Solomon Islands is tied to structural challenges, such as the decline of logging sector.
So the logging sector alone was about a quarter of the whole economy. But since 2016, if you look at the data, logging has declined significantly. So in less than 7 years' time, the logging sector has halved. So back in 2023, last year, only 1.6 million cubic meters of logs were exported. So the biggest sector of the economy has halved in 7 years' time. So that's the main structural issue that is facing the Solomon Islands economy. And given its economic geography challenges, it's a remote country, it's very dispersed, and given the lack of infrastructure and the lack of connectivity, it is a real challenge to find new sources of growth for Solomon Islands.
Mr. Smits emphasizes the country must ramp up investment promotion, improve infrastructure, and implement regulatory reforms to speed up economic growth.
And currently a lot of infrastructure works are taking place, and that is going to pay off. If you bring down electricity prices, if you improve infrastructure, you improve the overall business climate, investors will start looking at Solomon Islands. And it's also reaching out to investors. So it's investment promotion. And that's the final point I want to make. And that's the improving investment promotion activities and attracting foreign investment. The report mentions changing the regulatory environment to do that. For instance, here in Solomon Islands, the Ministry of Commerce, MSILI, is considering an amendment to the Foreign Investment Act to facilitate investment promotion. Establish an investment authority so that they can attract foreign investment. So just to summarize, it's improving the business environment, including in Solomon Islands infrastructure and electricity costs. It's improving government to business services and changing policies and regulations to attract both foreign and domestic investment.
Yan Kaukui for SIBC TV.
Women in central Guadalcanal celebrated World Food Day. Eliza Kukutu attended the celebrations and files the story.
Women in Bahomea, Malatoha and Belaha in central Guadalcanal celebrated the World Food Day at the Garivera Park today. The event is part of a 2-day program which started yesterday with the commemoration of the International Day of Rural Women. The celebrations saw many activities including traditional cooking competitions and awareness sessions. Organized through the Tina Hydro Project Gender Action Plan, the celebration aims to recognize and empower women in the communities. Speaking at today's event, Director of Research at the Ministry of Agriculture, Martin Jaiki, thanked the women for their contribution in the development of their communities.
In producing the food that sustains their communities and families. These women are the backbone of our communities, contributing significantly to both social and economic development. Their dedication and hard work feed and sustain our communities. We must support these leading actors or heroes of our food systems by providing them with tools, knowledge, and opportunities they need to thrive.
The Tina Hydro Project, through its Gender Action Plan, has been working with the 3 catchment areas in promoting and addressing gender and social issues. Gender Focal Point and Community Liaison Officer Helen Dolainau said the event is part of the project's planned activities.
This event happened yesterday, the International Day of Rural Women, and come along with him to World Food Day. Something when we plan him 2 years ago. We had one in Belaha, 2022, and we plan for we must get one for Gary Vera. So we kind of like hosting one of Belaha, and now today or this year, hemlo Bahome side, Lohelo Gary Vera. So it's an achievement, it's a milestone too. Especially for the women. Yes, it has been a 2 days successful event yesterday. We had good people, number of people come yesterday. Today, this one was an opportunity for the women from Belaha, Malatoha, and Bahome for come together and share them. Share them the experiences there. Just laugh. Sometimes it's good to leave all the stress behind. So they are very happy, and me happy too. Yeah. So this event yesterday and today, it's an achievement for them in particular.
Attendees also commended the hosting of the event.
Program block gender especially benefiting me fala, especially the young people blow me fala. And this time staka no leukemia, but me since group come me join inside in order for me educating na through trainings where hydro hem giving, because this time if you like attending trainings selenia where me fala no garim, but hydro me fala barbarlak and me like thanking okata hydro officer, gender officer, especially Helen for him me organize him na kind of same for in order for me fala sabetalem and some lokata young people this time what na things about him before, but I learn lo him even no respectful ways too.
A lot of women around Central Guadalcanal, but especially Malango Ward, would come together, and it's one of the success where Baham remain in the history book block at women law here for organizing such an event. And me looking event is very important because him also time a lot of women for reflect and look back the journey they come through.
Women of Tabara really impressed with this one. It's the only time that me have come together too. Yeah, me been stay aside. Me no one today or sembara one. So from story yesterday, the women so happy, enjoy, and me same time me come together now. Yeah, and also proud of what they learned from the programs here, then put on. Yeah, so they are very happy for good and very. And look forward for this day, yeah.
For SIBC TV, I'm Eliza Kukutu.
SEMA calls for ministerial powers over state-owned enterprises not to be allocated to one minister. Sharon Anau with the details.
The Commodities Export Marketing Authority SEMA says ministerial powers over state-owned enterprises, SOEs, must not be allocated to one minister alone. SEMA Marketing Manager Brian Kenesia told the Bills and Legislation Committee during their hearing into the SOEs Amendment Bill 2024. He said ministers are vulnerable to making decisions not in the best interest of SOEs as the sole power of an SOE is vested in the one minister alone.
Currently, we under the Minister of Commerce, which is we're dealing with one minister responsible for most of the authority thing to do with SEMA. But the inclusion of the Minister of Finance, in our view, is that if we have two ministers responsible for dealing with affairs to do with SEMA, I think that would be okay with the current revitalization. Just putting more powers in one minister. It falls along the line where there are certain things that shouldn't be happening, but it happened because one minister is responsible for most of the decision over the board. So if we're looking at the Minister of Finance coming in and then the Minister of Commerce, at least along the line of decision making, that would be appropriate for a new revitalized SEMA than leaving it on one minister carrying up the whole responsibility for decision making. Yeah.
Very courageous.
Yeah. I mean, that is how we look at the current situation of SEMA.
Good.
Yeah. Just leaving it on one hand is more. Yeah, could be okay in some sense, but not the way forward for SEMA.
Mr. Kenasia adds for SEMA's operation, having the Minister of Finance as their minister under the reviewed Act will contradict SEMA's operation.
We remain as it is, that putting a lot of powers on one minister is not ideal for SEMA. Because if you're looking at the Minister of Finance, they are more on the funding side, which is we like it. But then on the Minister of Commerce, where we actually, they are the custodian for what we do, they are the technical ministries. And most of their policies is exactly what SEMA is implementing. So moving out from Ministry of Commerce would be more contradicting what SEMA tried to do. And maybe when it comes to the priority of the revitalization of SEMA, the Minister of Finance will not along the line of what SEMA tried to achieve in terms of our corporate plan and the operational matters, which is the commercial, the trading function that we're currently doing.
Meanwhile, BLC member Honorable Matthew Wale explains misuse and mismanagement of SOE's processes and funds in the past was one of the reasons for having two ministers looking after the SOEs under the 2007 SOE Act.
And so that was the backdrop to this legislation. The legislation aimed to create a tension, a constructive tension. That's why it brought in two ministers. The technical ministry, its minister had to be one of the accountable ministers, and of course all SOEs have to operate commercially, and therefore the Minister of Finance had to be the other. And so that relationship really has helped the governance to turn SOEs around. If you had just one minister, I think problem. So the first question to you is, what this bill is doing is it's getting rid of that tension. It's assigning almost all of the powers go now Longo finance minister. Finance minister will basically monopolize powers when it comes to the SOE. Is that a good policy?
Sharon Nanau, SIBC TV.
Transparency Solomon Islands TSI describes government's SOE's Amendment Bill 2024 as a move to have power control over state institutions and assets. TSI representative Joy Abia told the Bills and Legislation Committee, BLC, during TSI's appearance before the committee.
This SOE bill is concerning to us, TSI. It shows the ruling regime's determination to have absolute power and control over state institutions and assets. Total power that will be vested in only one minister, proposed by this bill. TSI notes with concern that the ruling regime has the number and therefore they can pass any legislation to accomplish this. This is something that we are also concerned about.
Ms. Abia adds TSI views the current SOE Act as adequate to handle and respond to SOE's processes in the country.
It's an attempt to legitimize building syndicates around state institutions and assets. We see this as bill that attempt for giving absolute power and control, and it's legalizing corrupt activities, promoting conflict of interest, lack of transparency and accountability. And this one by creating high risk of political influence through the appointment of SOE boards and having cronies only to be appointed there. When we have only one minister that is having this total power and accountability of the SOEs.
Solomon Islands Mental Health Foundation President Professor Transform Angorao calls for the establishment of an acute isolation unit in Honiara. Sharon Anau reports.
Solomon Islands Mental Health Foundation President Professor Transform Angorao calls for the establishment of an acute isolation unit in Honiara. Professor Angorao made the call during the World Mental Health celebration last week. He said the establishment of an acute isolation unit would relieve families with mental health patients from dealing with the police every time a mental health incident occurs.
As we talk about prioritizing mental health in the workplace, we must also talk about prioritizing the development of facilities, particularly an acute isolation unit in Honiara. Such a facility would not only provide a safe and dignified space for those needing urgent care, but would also relieve families from the agonizing role of interacting with the police during their loved one's crisis. It is essential that we begin to shift how we talk about mental health. Mental health conditions are like any other illness. They affect the mind, just as broken bones affect the body. And as the World Health Organization reminds us, there is no health without mental health.
Professor Angorao said the limited mental health facilities in the country has forced the police to deal with mental health patients.
Yet in our beautiful nation, the Solomon Islands, the facilities to properly care for those struggling are limited. The lack of an acute isolation unit means that at times our children and our relatives are taken into police custody. They're placed in cells, a place that is not only inappropriate, but it diminishes their dignity and humanity. And as a parent who has experienced this firsthand, I can say that it is one of the most painful experiences that a family can endure. Our hospitals, our mental services, and our support systems are doing their utmost best with the limited resources they have. But it is time that we acknowledge that we can and must do more.
Professor Angorao says through the Solomon Islands Mental Health Foundation, they hope to address some of the issues facing mental health patients in the country.
And the stigma that mental health patients face is unjust. And the guilt families bear because of this stigma is equally harmful. The Solomon Islands Mental Health Foundation, which we are going to establish, is dedicated to reducing this stigma and advocating for better policies and support systems. Our objectives are clear. We want to promote understanding, reduce stigma, and provide a network of support for patients and families. And our foundation seeks to complement the work of the Ministry of Health and Medical Services, to play a supporting role in enhancing mental health policies and services through collaboration with government agencies, NGOs, and international bodies.
Sharon Nanau, SIBC TV.
Public debt has gradually risen to nearly 22% of Solomon Islands' gross domestic product, GDP, in recent years. Yan Kaukui with more.
Public debt has gradually risen to nearly 22% of Solomon Islands' gross domestic product, GDP, in recent years. This was revealed in the World Bank Pacific Economic Update for the month of October. World Bank senior economist Lodewijk Smets told the local media that the rise of public debt corresponds with increased investment in national development initiatives.
Public debt to GDP ratios have been low in the past years, less than 10% of GDP 5 years ago. and that is partly due to debt forgiveness after the Ramsey period and after the tensions. But you rightly point out that debt to GDP has been increasing. So now we're about 22% of GDP. So it's on an increasing trend. Debt is increasing, but for good reason, because the development needs of this country are still large. Infrastructure needs are still large. So it is important to invest in the country so that the country can meet its national development goals. So that's part of the reason why debt is increasing, to invest and to make productive investment.
He adds it is important that current investments are sustainable and could bring economic return.
These investments that we are currently making, in the roads, in airport infrastructure, in the ports, that they are sustainable. So it's important that investments are sustainable so that 10 years from now, the ports are still functioning, the roads are well maintained. So while the increase in debt leads to investment, we need to ensure that the investments have good economic returns and are sustainable. And that also means complementary reforms, making sure that we can set some funds aside for the maintenance of all that infrastructure that we're now investing in. One final point to make, if you look at the Pacific countries, the debt to GDP ratio in Fiji is a lot larger. It's close to 80% of GDP, but it is on a declining trend. So it's all about making sure that your debt is sustainable. And currently that is still the case for Solomon Islands. That is sustainable, but we need to make sure that the investments we make, the loans the government takes on, are well invested. That the investments they make have good economic and social returns, that they benefit the people and that they benefit the economy.
Jan Kaukui for SIBC TV.
Solomon Islands has signed a mutual visa exemption agreement with Saudi Arabia. Prime Minister Jeremiah Manile told local media that the signing of the mutual visa exemption reflects the genuine relationship shared between the two countries.
I also signed a visa reciprocal arrangement for all passport holders of diplomatic and official passports with His Royal Highness, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. This agreement is guided by the exact same principles in all visa reciprocal arrangements or agreements Solomon Islands has with many other countries, including the one we signed with the United Arab Emirates in 2017. The agreement allows holders of diplomatic or official passports from either country to enter the other country without applying for a visa and remain for 90 days within a 180 days period. Under the agreement, any holder of diplomatic or official passports wishing to stay beyond the 90 days will have to apply for visa extension or leave before the expiry of the 90 days. Like most agreements signed with all other countries, we have visa waiver agreements with. The agreement is for a period of 5 years and renewable by mutual consent. Like other visa waiver agreements we have signed, either country can terminate the agreement by giving a 6-month notice, at least 6 months before the expiration date of the agreement.
As SIBC News understands, Saudi Arabia signed its diplomatic ties with Solomon Islands more than 10 years ago. The Oxfam Kotwi program held its annual workshop in Honiara this week. The workshop focuses on the efforts taken towards climate finance in Solomon Islands. Mary Manilagua reports.
The Oxfam Kotwi program held its annual workshop in Honiara this week. The workshop focused on the efforts taken towards climate finance in Solomon Islands. Oxfam in the Pacific Climate Justice Lead, Gareth Quitty, confirmed this to SIBC News.
Start today, if I basically go into more detailed workshopping for our partners, try for understanding what climate finance context law, national level, international, regional level, and national level, and also get to hear from partners, learn from partners what not to do in terms of climate finance inside the region. So importantly, climate finance also me save me one for important issue for the Solomon Islands, especially in terms of climate change. You may say that climate change has got a big impact not only in the Solomon Islands but across the region, and you may also people blame me become vulnerable, yeah, communities blame me, and you may need for accessing seleni, yeah, for addressing the issues of climate change through adaptation. So if I look in this workshop was very important because by helpful building not a partners blame for survey hana seleni hem come inside the country for helping adaptation, mitigation, and helping the vulnerable people and community blame.
Meanwhile, Oxfam Aotearoa representative Rosemary Powell says the workshop is part of a joint effort to make sure communities remain resilient to climate change.
The way this program works and the real key for its success is that we work with partners, so partners who are on the ground, who are connected to their communities, because it's all about making sure that the well-being of communities is improved. So we have our host being here in Solomon Islands, so Oxfam Solomon Islands is hosting us, but the two really key partners that we have here in the Solomons is WARA and SICAN, and so they are crucial for us. They're the ones on the ground building relationships with communities. They're the ones who can really hear the voice of communities and bring that voice back all the way up to government. So they're our key here.
The Oxfam Kotui program is supported by the New Zealand government. Mary Manelegua for SIBC TV.
The People's Republic of China, PRC, has donated livelihood materials to two communities in the Savo-Russell constituency in Honiara yesterday. Speaking during the handing over at the Chinese Embassy, Chinese Ambassador to Solomon Islands, His Excellency Kai Wei-ming, assures that China will continue to support communities in the country.
On behalf of the Chinese Embassy, I wish to announce that Chinese Embassy will donate 1 generator, 2 sewing machines, 40 radio, 60 solar lights with charging panels, and 100 t-shirts to the Pokilo village and Hai village. We hope these small items will help improve your daily lives and working conditions. The Chinese Embassy would like to offer more help within our own capacity to more local communities of Solomon Islands and bring more benefits to the ordinary people of this country. Over the past 5 years, since the establishment of bilateral relations between China and Solomon Islands, and based on the One China principle, we have made tremendous progress in our bilateral cooperation.
Savo-Russell Constituency Office Accountant Commons Mariu thanked China for the donation.
Savo-Russell leaders and chiefs who are here to come and witness this handover about these equipments. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, on behalf of the people, on behalf of Savo-Russell leaders and the chiefs, I wish to take this chance to convey our sincere heart of appreciation to what your office has been given to us today. Since our honorable member is in the office for just 6 months and availing himself such assistance like this, it indicates to you and us that our relationship will still continue. So we thank you for that. Your Excellency, our constituency did not access such assistance with our past leaders. With due respect, we thank you very much for your assistance, and we are looking forward to work with you in the near future with your upcoming program.
And that's news. Follow us on sibconline.com.sb and our SIBC News Facebook page for more of our latest stories. Thanks for watching.